जयति पराशरसूनुः सत्यवती हृदयनन्दनो व्यासः यस्य आस्य कमलगलितं वाङ्मयममृतं जगत्पिबति भुजगभोगाभमुद्यम्य हृद्यं निजभुजं दक्षिणं लक्षणाढ्यं ललितमुद्रिक्तविज्ञानमुद्रं भज भज अनन्तमित्यालपन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रणये पूर्णबोधम् भवदवोष्णेन तातप्यमानान् भुवि परं नाथमप्रेक्षमाणान् भुवनमान्येन च अन्येन दोष्णा भवतु भीर्मा इति नः सान्त्वयन्तम् प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रणये पूर्णबोधम्.
During an earlier Upanyasa, a gentleman asked a question. How can humans live for 600 years? I had mentioned that Bhishma, Drona and Virata were around 600 years old during Mahabharata. How can one live so long when the typical age of a human being is around 100 years? It is natural to ask such a question because we rarely meet anyone older than 100 years, let alone 600 years. Is it a figment of imagination that some of our ancient folks lived for hundreds of years? How does one prove such a fact? People who do not understand the truth behind such facts make up false arguments that these facts are all fiction and there are no truths to such statements. Another example is the story of Adishesha holding the earth on its hood. How is that possible? Is it not the gravitational force that holds the earth in its orbit? If Shesha had the earth, who was holding Shesha in place? It is essential to dispel such false notions. The gravitational force holds the earth in place. Another name for Shesha is Sankarshana, namely attraction. So our ancients were right when saying that Shesha, the attraction force, held the earth. We understand that gravitational force keeps the earth in place in modern scientific terminology. But how did the gravitational force of attraction manifest in nature? What is the supreme life force that enables the gravitational force to fix the planets in its place? It is not an inert force. We call that supreme Chaitanya Shakti or force as Shesha. When everything in the universe becomes Nishesha or destroyed, what remains is Shesha, that supreme force. Thus, it is essential to understand the words in such a context and look for the proper explanation. Now let us try to understand how can one live for 600 years. Paramahamsa Yogananda has written a book called The Autobiography of a Yogi. He mentions an elderly gentleman who lives in the Himalayas and is hundreds of years old. How is it possible to live beyond 100 years? Let us try to understand the measure of time. 1 year is 365 days based on the sunset and sunrise which we can track. Based on this, 1 day has 24 hours or 86,400 seconds. However, the number of breaths determines the human body's measure of time. In general, 1 breath lasts for 4 seconds. 1 day consists of 21,600 breaths. If one regulates his breath by techniques such as pranayama, each breath can last much longer than 4 seconds. If he takes a breath every 8 seconds, he will take only 10,800 breaths in 24 hours. To take 21,600 breaths, he would need 48 hours. If he practices such slow breathing for his entire life, he could last 200 years, equivalent to the same number of breaths ordinary people take in 100 years. If he takes one breath in 16 seconds, he can last for 400 years. The breathing capacity of our lungs determines the number of breaths taken in one lifetime for a given body. If one sleeps like Kumbhakarna, time practically stands still. The slower rate of breathing increases one's lifetime. The body's longevity increases by slowing the breathing process using techniques like pranayama. Therefore, our ancient folks attached a lot of significance to breath control using pranayama. Pranayama is a beautiful technique that enhances one's lifespan. Pranayama is also taught to our children during Upanayana by parents or by the Purohit or the priest. Pranayama was supposed to be part of our daily practice. And these days, pranayama is not practiced for breath control and it has lost its significance. Several elders in Mahabharata were 600 years old. Dharmaraja lived for 108 years and Bhimasena lived for 107 years. Not everyone enjoyed this longevity. Krishna and Arjuna lived for 106 years. Nakula and Sahadeva lived for 105 years. Kunti and Dhritarashtra lived for 120 years each. But those who lived for 500 to 600 years were Bhishma, Drupada, Drona, Virata, Baklika, Somadatta, Kripa, and a few others. When the Mahabharata war took place, Dharmaraja was 72 years old and Arjuna was 70. Amazingly, they all had the energy for such a battle at the age of 70. We see that in olden times, there was this beautiful pranayama technique, breath control, practiced by many to live a lifespan lasting several hundred years. It was supposed to be a part of our daily practice during morning puja or sandhya vandana. However, the technique has fallen into disuse due to a lack of understanding of its true significance. We should attempt to learn the proper technique for breath control and practice it regularly to lead a long and healthy life.